Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 10 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started with today's webinar about the broadband application training. So thank you again for everyone joining us and getting all settled in. Good morning. We're excited to share and walk you through this information and the resources we're going to provide you today. So on that note, we will go ahead and get started. So to give you kind of a rundown of what to expect, and for the agenda for today, we'll go through some introductions. We'll discuss the project's overview and the FCC broadband fabric overview. We'll discuss NCDIT, their broadband efforts to highlight what they're doing and pushing out of that office. We'll discuss making individual and bulk challenges and kind of the overview of that. We'll run a demo to walk you through the mapping application and also the FCC, their map and how those challenges work. And then we'll go over how to import those bulk challenges. And lots of fun stuff is, in store for you today. And then we'll wrap it up with what we're doing for next steps here. So before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items or Zoom etiquette to help this webinar run as smoothly as possible. We would hope you would consider maybe disconnecting from any VPN or third-party connections during the meeting just to maintain that strong connectivity. While speakers are presenting, feel free to use the chat feature. I know we're going to be using it to drop in questions as they come up or resources to share with each other. We're going to be using the feature, so we definitely encourage you to do so as well, because I know once we're, in the nitty-gritty of talking and going through it, questions will naturally arise and come up, and we don't want you to forget them. So please, bombard us with, with that chat feature, because we're going to be doing it as well. And then if closed captions would be helpful for you, you should be able to click the settings and accessibility tab and have that pop up for you. This is a friendly reminder that this is being recorded. So this will be available on PTRC's website, hopefully as soon as next week or within the next couple. The public webinar session we had last week is already on our website and posted. So toward the end, we'll go over that. But again, we are uploading these as fast as we can. And again, we are recording it. So if you missed something, this can definitely be referenced later on. Okay, so introductions. So good morning again. I am Garrett Dinkins. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator here at the Piedmont Triad Regional Council, or PTRC, as I'll refer to it as. So I grew up in Yadkin County, and I'm USCG alum. So I've always been deeply rooted here in the Piedmont Triad region, and now I'm here at PTRC. So I'm getting to continue working with projects and fun stuff to help this area. Again, I love this region. Love what I do. As a quick introduction, because some of you might know PTRC or you've heard of it, or this is the first time, hearing, what is it? So again, just a quick intro to that. So PTRC, we're a voluntary association, of local governments across the 12-county Piedmont Triad region. We provide things like technical assistance with grant management, special projects, and we also manage programs within aging, criminal justice, community development, regional planning, and workforce and economic development. So of course, I'm part of the Workforce and Economic Development Department, which is responsible for bringing you here today for this webinar and this information. So we're excited to unveil this project and what we've been working on with you today. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it to Adam and Brian so they can give you a little bit more information about them.
Thank you, Garrett. And also thank you to the audience for attending this webinar. We are very happy to be here today to talk to you about this project. It's really exciting and the ways that we can help. First off, I'd just like to mention that HDR, we're an employee-owned design firm specializing in architecture, engineering, environmental, and construction services. Our goal for projects that we're involved in or lead is always to help to move communities forward. My name's Adam. I'm a senior GIS analyst at Geographic Information Systems, GIS, for HDR, and the deputy project manager for this project. I'm originally from the Charlotte area, went to UNC Charlotte, grew up in the Carolinas. I was majored in geography and urban studies. For about 20 years, I've helped with mapping solutions for city and county governments, regional planning initiatives, and even broadband networks. And with that, I'll pass it over to Brian.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Weingarten. I'm a GIS analyst, application developer for HDR. Been doing application development and GIS work for utilities, gas, electric, and a lot of telecom for over 15 years. And I've been at HDR for about 6 years now, and happy to be on this project.
All right. Thank you, Brian. That was, and Adam, for those introductions and then getting everybody up to speed on, who we are and why we're here for you. So moving on to the project overview. So a little bit of background information. So PTRC did receive a grant from the U.S. Economic Development Administration, or EDA, to conduct an extensive broadband assessment for the Piedmont Triad region. So out of this grant and project, two main goals kind of spurred from that. One of those being to assist county and local governments with understanding the FCC broadband challenge process and the broadband data collection system, which we will definitely dive into in the next little bit, and how to verify that broadband serviceable locations and availability data are accurately represented in the FCC fabric for the Piedmont Triad region. Another notion that spun out of this was developing a mapping application tool, which we'll definitely also show you later today, and kind of recommendations moving forward. So we're excited to finally be at this level to show you some of these things that we've got from this project. And with that, I think I'm going to pass it to Adam for a bit to kind of go over some of these overviews and to give you more information on some of this.
Thank you again, Garrett. You see on this slide, the FCC overview, the broadband data collection BDC system. It consists of two data sets. One are BSLs, it's the broadband serviceable locations. And the other data set shows where ISP or internet service providers report where they have internet services available to consumers. The FCC then reviews the data and any challenges to them periodically and publishes it to the National Broadband Map. Individual consumers can challenge or dispute information shown in the map that they believe is inaccurate. And this is very important because an accurate map or broadband fabric, internet availability data can help the state identify unserved and underserved communities most in need for funding for high-speed internet infrastructure investments. The FCC defines an unserved location as one without any broadband service or very low speeds. The FCC has it as 25 megabits per second download speed or lower, and 3 megabits per second upload speed or lower as an unserved location. Underserved locations are offering only low speeds that are not compatible with today's internet-centric society. We all have kids that do e-learning, or we have opportunities to work from home, and with streaming, and there's all kinds of different opportunities out there that we do live in this internet-centric society. And underserved, the FCC requirement is anything below I think it's 100 megabits per second and 20 megabits upload speed. And distinguishing between these categories offers two benefits. It helps lawmakers prioritize funding decisions and decreases the likelihood that funds are spent on outdated technology. In the past, funding has been made available for things like bringing service to an area, programs to help with affordability of broadband, purchasing devices, and also specialized training for utilizing technology. A link is going to be dropped in the chat. Chris Neal with HDR, he's going to be looking through the chat and dropping some links there for you on any kind of links for the FCC broadband program and other helpful resources. Next slide, please. This is the National Broadband Map. You can access it through broadbandmap.fcc.gov. This map here, this image is just a sneak peek of the homepage. We'll be having a little bit of a demo on this page later in this webinar. And first, we're going to talk about some state resources for individual consumers and communities alike. Next slide, please. In North Carolina, it's estimated that 1.1 million households lack access to high-speed internet, cannot afford it, or do not have the skills needed to take advantage of the digital economy. The NC Department of Information Technology, or the NCDIT, Division of Broadband and Digital Equity Office, have done a tremendous amount of work looking for ways to close the digital divide and increase digital equity for consumers. You can find more info about this at ncbroadband.gov. Chris will be continuing to drop links in the chat for more information. Next slide, please. The Community Broadband Planning Playbook. The NCDIT has a Community Broadband Planning Playbook, which provides the tools needed to follow their technical assistant team's guidance to help expand broadband access in your community. There are functional resources to help you identify your current broadband needs, take stock of your available assets, strengths and weaknesses, establish goals, and create and implement policies that will help your community achieve its vision for the future. The link to the playbook will also be dropped in the chat. Next slide, please. The NCDIT also has a survey that you can take that will pair your location with a report of slow or no internet. The survey will ask questions about your location, how you access the internet, for example, cellular, cable, fiber, perform a speed test, and ask about your costs for internet. The data collected here helps the state have a granular data point that can help inform areas that may need to be challenged on a community's behalf. You can visit ncbroadband.gov/survey to take the survey. Next slide, please. Next, we'd like to highlight a few local resources today. There are others in your community. Your local library is a great place to ask about any resource available to help you access high-speed internet effectively. First one on here, right now project. It's helping to address digital literacy skills in Alamance County, Rockingham County, and Chatham County, North Carolina. They have digital navigators who assist community members with services include ongoing assistance with affordable internet access, device acquisition, technical skills training, and application support. Digital Bridges Forsyth is led by Winston Net, Inc. It's a nonprofit community technology organization. The group developed the county's digital equity plan and is striving to be a prototype for the nation, partnering with many of the area's major academic, public, community, and private institutions. They are coordinating resources that strengthen community technology center services and educational quality to help prepare the workforce for the next generation of network-based computer technologies. And then the Randolph Senior Adults Association. It's an example of a local private nonprofit organization that has served Randolph County since 1975. It is an organization of individuals who are interested in improving the quality of life for Randolph County residents who are 50 years of age or older and in serving as advocates on their behalf. Next slide, please. So now we're going to place our focus back on the FCC National Broadband Map. The National Broadband Map consists of two data sets, both of which can be challenged: fabric locations and broadband availability. What are the differences between both? Fabric challenges, or fabric locations, it's a data set of all locations in the United States and territories where fixed broadband internet access service is or could be installed. Think about fabric locations as more of the address itself, basically like a point on a map. It is developed, the fabric itself is developed by CostQuest. It's a consultant for the FCC, and it follows FCC rules. The challenges and updates, the fabric is updated twice per year. These challenges are accepted on an ongoing basis, and successful challenges will be reflected in future fabric releases. With broadband availability, the difference between that and fabric locations is that availability data shows where broadband services, if any, are available at locations included in the fabric, as reported by ISPs or internet service providers every 6 months. Who creates it? Internet service providers report their availability data to the FCC every 6 months. Challenges and updates timeline. We're going to be showing a timeline later on in the slides, but they're updated every 2 weeks to reflect challenge and outcomes. Challenges are accepted and resolved on an ongoing basis. Next slide, please. There are different types of challenges that you can do within the fabric location, fixed fabric or the fixed location challenges and the availability challenges. We're going to focus on the fabric location challenges currently. There are 8 different types of challenges. Number 1, a new BSL or broadband service location. Basically, the address doesn't have a point on the current map, on the FCC broadband map, which we'll show a demo in a few minutes. An address change makes changes to the address associated with that point on the map or that broadband service location. The unit count, if you live in a duplex or a single family home and you have, and the attributes within the dot on the map or the point has, you had 3 units, you would like to change that, you can to challenge that. The building type, if you live in a residential, but you're currently, and the status says commercial, then they'll need to be challenged. BSL location, the location itself of the point on the map may not be on the footprint of your house. It may be somewhere else. Maybe your next door neighbor should be probably on top of your house. An abandoned structure, a lot of times these could be old houses that a new house was built on a parcel or so on and so forth. So we can remove those points or remove them. And then additional addresses. For example, a secondary house on a single parcel, a mother-in-law suite, so to speak. These additional addresses can be added or removed. Next slide, please. Availability challenges. There's a couple more here. These are, again, more service providing types of challenges. The failed schedule installation. If a provider fails to schedule service installation within 10 business days of a request. That's one type of challenge. Not installed in time, more than the standard installation costs, denied service request. There are other types of availability challenges we're going to go through, but really I want to highlight the last column. This is the evidence that you will need to provide when you make a challenge. It is very important to be very detailed, to save your communications through email or notepad or ever how you need to do it, printing them out, and then because you'll need to be able to upload these challenges, screenshots, installation quotes, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. Technology and service not offered, reported speed not available. Again, these are types of availability challenges. Next slide, please. Subscribe speed not available. Something to be said about the speed, though. When you do speed tests aren't always very reliable. So it's very important to talk with your neighbors, see if they're having issues with their speed as well. It is better to do a bulk fabric challenge when it comes to speed. We talked with the FCC about this, and that was their recommendation for accuracy purposes. It's better to be crowdsourced. So chat with your neighbors, see if they are also having issues with their subscribe speed, or if it's not available in that area. No wireless satellite available, non-standard equipment required, no provider in the area, or other types of availability challenges. Next slide, please. So in 2024, these are the key dates for the National Broadband Map. In January, the ISPs, the filing window opens for fixed and mobile availability data as of the last day of last year. And then the deadline to add those to the map for ISPs is March 1st. On March 8th is the best opportunity for bulk challenges of location data. So that will be challenging using bulk challenges I will explain in a few minutes to the fabric. And that closes, and that will close on, they're accepted, and bulk challenge is accepted to the fabric in June. So May and June, then that window will close. So bulk challenges, one of the things to know is that it's more of a biannual thing, while individual challenges you can do more and more. All right, it's ongoing. Next slide, please. How to make an individual challenge using the FCC National Broadband Map. As we continue, so basically to do this, you'll go to FCC Broadband Map, and then you'll create a account if you want to track your challenge status. You enter your address into the search toolbar, review the information for accuracy, create a location-based challenge, and create an availability-based challenge. And to do that, I'm going to share my screen here. If everybody can see my screen okay. I'm going to, this is the FCC National Broadband Map. This is the best place to be making individual challenges. If I was to pick a city, for example, and so you can zoom into your house, you can put in your address there. You can look at the points on this map here. You can see it says coverage available in the green dots, the red dots coverage not available, and the gray dots being not a mass market location. If I was to click on one of these dots, you can see the address, you can see if it's served, you can see the provider. So you can see it's Charter Communications using cable technology, the different megabits per second, so on and so forth. To make a challenge this location, if you think the point on the map is incorrect or the data is incorrect, you can do a location challenge. You click on location challenge, you type in your name, your email, your phone number, the challenge type, if the incorrect location address or location is not within the correct building footprint. And there's documentation evidence supporting the challenge. So you have a brief description of the documentation and then you submit it. Again, this could be any kind of correspondence or anything that you have, screenshots, photos, so on and so forth. And then you would agree upon the certify your evidence and your challenge. Click the little box here if you do, and then submit. Availability challenges, you would click this link here. If it's availability, it's okay. Say it's Charter, we'll select them. And then do you want to send your challenge to the selected provider, or I'm just giving feedback? And so you can do two ways. You can do an official challenge, or you can give feedback to the map. You can describe your experience, your challenge, your name, info, and then submit as well. And with that, Garrett, can you go back to the slideshow? Thank you. And the next slide, please. How to make a bulk challenge using the FCC National Broadband Map. So this is actually a bulk challenge. You would be using not the National Broadband Map, you'll be using the FCC BDC system. The BDC system BDC stands for Broadband Data Collection System. We'll be using this after the web application demo. Bulk challenges are biannual and useful for larger community challenges. There is a caveat though. In order to do a bulk challenge, you must first have access to the BDC system. To do this, you must have a profile through CORS, C-O-R-E-S. It is the commission registration system. It's with the FCC. This profile is registered in your name and contact info with the FCC. And then it will be connected to the FCC's registration number. An FRN or FCC registration number is a 10-digit number that identifies your business dealings with the FCC. You will need an FRN anytime you're doing business with the FCC. If you do not have an FRN or not affiliated or associated with the FCC, you may register for one through the core system. Once you do that, though, we can now submit bulk challenges. The great thing about bulk challenges is previously, as you see, an individual challenge was one address. To do a bulk challenge would be multiple addresses. A lot of times challenges we're looking for neighborhoods or large areas, and to challenge those areas and see for service or availability or just fixed locations, it's a lot easier to just submit all of them at once. Coming up shortly, Brian will show us an amazing web application that we've helped develop for PTRC and their members to easily view all of their regional CostQuest provided broadband data sets, analyze and compare data provided by multiple data resources, and aid in compilation and submission of bulk challenges. Before this demo, though, I'd like everybody to be aware that licensing is very important to using any information provided by the FCC/CostQuest. In order to have access to the web application that we are about to demo, or any of the FCC CostQuest information within the customized web application, you must be affiliated or associated with the PTRC. In addition, your CORS profile will need to be associated with the PTRC FRN number, which will require PTRC authorization. With all that being said, we all, counties, towns, neighbors, service providers, consultants, we're all really here to provide the highest, best broadband fiber network for the Piedmont Triad region. Everybody really deserves reliable internet. So thank you all again for joining our webinar today. And before we move on to the web application demo, we would like to open the floor to any questions.
All right, thank you, Adam. I'll kind of jump in for a second if that's okay, because I know that I do have questions. So thank you again for that great information and showing us the FCC broadband map and how easy it is to just, Google search it, create an account, and then you can start, I'm going to research my address, my family's address, everybody, and see what's listed as far as available there. Is those speeds they're listing, is that accurate, and kind of go through those processes. So if you don't mind me kind of jumping in, so again, I'm on the FCC broadband map. I'm filing an availability challenge. What can I expect after that? Like I've got my evidence, as you mentioned, I've got my screenshots. Here it is.
Right.
The location is wrong. You're marking, this is my house when it's really that, or you're saying that, this type of internet service is available, but I'm unaware of that. What can I expect after I submit that?
That's a great question, Garrett. Basically, within a few days, the FCC will review the challenge. If the challenge is accepted and not rejected for being a location challenge or insufficient evidence, you will receive an email notification that it's made it to the next phase. You can also track this too using your login information on the FCC broadband map. The provider will have 60 days to respond to this challenge. They can deem the challenge valid or reject it, or even rebut it, and then the challenge, based on their own evidence. I think Chris has a link that he could put in the chat too for more detail. Would be helpful.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Yeah, and I know with Chris's link, there'll be more additional help for making these challenges, I'm sure, as far as kind of what the FCC has and those resources out there. Okay, awesome. And I think you mentioned something about it earlier, but is there any kind of submission deadline as far as, do I need to kind of take my time researching these, or do I need to act fast? How often does the FCC review these challenges on that?
So you can make an individual challenge at any time. A lot of it's ongoing. through the FCC broadband map. Really, timelines are more prevalent, I guess, is for bulk challenges, because they only like to accept those within certain windows. That would be biannually. But if you're making an individual challenge, you can pretty much go to the FCC broadband map right after this webinar if you like, and help out and see what your friend or a neighbor, and see if everybody, if you have the right service or the right availability, or if the point's in the right location.
Okay, thank you. Awesome. Okay, so I've made my challenges. I now know kind of how the submission works and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say internet speed. So I test my speed, I challenge it, and it shows that it's not at the level that's reported on that FCC map. So so I make the challenge, I let them know, and I win. The FCC deems this as, yeah, this is valid. What's my next steps? What can I expect from the internet service provider that is clearly being dishonest with those types of speeds, or maybe just not reported correctly? Kind of how do they mitigate that challenge?
Yeah, no, a lot of times the mapping fabric ISPs will put maybe even planned service, and it may not be there yet either. So it's one of those things where just by making attention to this is very important for the accuracy for the area, as well as quote unquote, winning the challenge or not. The big thing about it is during that 60 days for the ISP or the provider to respond to your challenge and to create the evidence, if there is evidence that the ISP is not doing what they need to do or are reporting, then a lot of times that will get mitigated during that process. If there's not a kind of a mitigation through that, then at least the accuracy of the map is updated, and that will allow for funding to come down to that community or other ISPs to come in, and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you, Adam. That's great. Yes, I do apologize. I kind of jumped in and it sort of guided the conversations there. So let me take a step back and again open the floor up. And I did mention that I would be monitoring the chat feature. So let me actually take a step back and look at that as well for some questions or anything that I can help. So again, the floor is open if anyone wants to unmute and kind of throw something at us, or want to use the chat feature, that's fine as well. But I will review that real quickly if that's okay. Okay. Aha. Okay. Yes. So there is a question. It said, okay. So Adam or Brian, whoever can help, because it might be you versus I. Is this project, so is this one different than the one that the state is doing? So I think it's referring to the NC1 map, maybe. So what we're doing for this, well, I know we haven't really gotten to the demo of the application just yet, but in general, is that project, again, is it different? How does, I guess, it kind of fit within that, narrative?
Yeah, we are actually, all of us are really working toward the same goals. It is different though. This one is more focused on our region, the 12 counties, the PTRC area, and just really focused on trying to look at these communities, because you can look at it as a whole state. You can look at it from a federal state like the FCC, or federal government like the FCC does. But if you keep going down to smaller levels, really it's all about communities, right? It's all about just getting the right information into this map. And if PTRC, for example, and the counties associated and cities, along with other regional governments around, start helping out in that effort, it's not just, a state level. You have a better sense of scale into these communities and more knowledge about your neighbors and your communities. And it's very helpful that way as well.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Yeah, thank you for that clarification, Adam. And if there's anyone that, if there's any questions outstanding, please, let's address that now. But I think that question was kind of a great segue into let's look at the application. Let's see, I know we've focused on kind of the FCC broadband and what those individual challenges look like. So with that kind of being, what's the state doing? What's PTRC doing? How does that look? Where do they kind of overlap or run parallel? I think it'd be great to maybe kind of get in and actually see, see this
Yeah.
and see what we've got going on. But again, if anyone has a question regarding what we've shared so far, please throw that at us. But I think it might be great, Adam and Brian, to maybe transition and start, looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah, Garrett, thank you. Yeah, we can go ahead and start on the web application portal that we've developed.
Okay.
Sounds great. Yeah,
Can,
that's the good part. I'll show my screen and begin.
Yep.
Okay. And then we do have some web application benefits. So Adam, if you want to just, I think I'm going to jump in a little bit, but if you want to kind of run down those quickly, we'll do it.
Oh yeah, go over this. Also I'll add, those state programs to those questions. There's definitely, I'm going to be showing you, they're actually contained, access to them are actually contained within the application. So you're going to see them.
Yeah, that's a great addition. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, with the state, a lot of those resources are added to this web application as well, as Brian is referring to. So that's one of the benefits, really, that kind of leads us to this slide. Updated and pre-processed data from the FCC broadband map. That is the points themselves, the CostQuest points. Also, we can compare and analyze the site with data compiled from NCDIT, NC1 map, as Brian's referring to. Streamlined development of the CSV file needed for bulk challenges within the BDC system. That is very important. So when you do a bulk challenge, and we'll show this later on during the demo, when you create a bulk challenge, you need to create a CSV file, and it has to be in an exact, each column and each record has to be exact, or it will come back as an error. So by using the web application portal, it helps, sanitize that table enough for it to be a simple input. Next slide, please. Who can use the web application? Again, licensing wise, associates and affiliates with PTRC, counties, cities, towns, if you're a member. You can make challenges on behalf of your jurisdiction under the license, under the PTRC FRN license. Once you have your FCC CORS account, you can request to associate your username with your profile with the PTRC. Again, if you're not affiliated, this doesn't mean that, it just means you can't use this data, this specific data. But if you have a CORS account and you have a different RFN number, you can contact the FCC/CostQuest, get your own points for your location, and be able to submit your own bulk challenges. And I think next slide. And with that, I'll hand it over to Brian for the demo.
Okay, great. Fun part. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen now, and it is the landing page, the front page for the application. And what you're seeing here is just a little splash screen with welcome splash screen with a disclaimer that you need to just check off the agree to above terms and conditions and then select OK. And we also have a little link to the user guide, which we're going to come back to later on, which is essentially going to have everything documented in what I'm going to show you here for quick access and reference. So just a little background on the application platform. It's built in the Esri's ArcGIS Experience Builder. So it's an application built on that platform, and it's pretty much out of the box in terms of development, with some custom code in there, but nothing too deep in terms of development. Okay, so let's acknowledge this and jump in here to this front page. And what you'll see here, are 4 menus, or 4 modules inside of a menu. I guess you can call them modules. And each represents something that you want to accomplish here. So a location challenge, a fixed broadband challenge, a mobile broadband availability. I guess module would be to examine mobile broadband availability, and there's some instruction in there. And then a data discovery. What I'm going to do is do a kind of light dive into all of these, and then I'm going to come back and do a deep dive and create some challenges in the location challenge module over here. And then I'm going to come back and do a little bit deeper on some of these, but not as deep as we did the location challenge. Then I'm going to come back to that ending location challenge phase right before you take that submittal and send it to BDC, which would be Adam's area. So sounds like a lot of jumping around, but I think it'll work good in this demonstration. So let's jump into this first one and just show you what it looks like. So when I click the location challenge, it opens up this map interface. And let me just walk you through it, show you how everything works. So on this left sidebar here, we have all the counties. This is just simply for some quick zooming to your county extent. You just want to start there in your map and get a zoom location if you know where you're going. We also have a search bar, which will search on every address, any address you put in the world. Works pretty well. We're going to come back to that as well. Let me jump from the sidebar over to these menu locations. And this is, this first one actually comes up on default. This is the map layer. So if I click this button, it turns off. This is the edit, create location challenge edit button. This is where we create the challenges on the map. Let me just go back to the overall PTRC view. And that can be done with this default map view button here. And you have zoom buttons as well down in the lower right. And this button right here, going back up top here, is the user guide documentation. So every page you're going to see is going to have this button with the app workflow user guides, some other PDFs that were built from mostly FCC material that we're going to show you, and everything is applicable to whatever menu module that you're on. Plus some app user guides buttons is on every page. So, all right, so those are these 3 buttons. Let me show you a little bit more of the map layers. So the map layers in the map, it's kind of the biggest thing you want to know. It's very similar to the FCC map. You'll see we have the fabric, the BSL locations, your address points. We have footprints, parcels, and your county boundaries. Now you're going to see these all start to appear as you zoom in. And they'll come into play, and the legend actually turns on, and you can see what everything represents. So data reveals itself as you zoom in. So that's just built for efficient map navigation. So now a lot of these things are selectable. So your BSL, all you have to do is take your cursor on the map and select that object, and it'll reveal some data. And this data can be docked with that button right there. And then you can see the data within there. Now, this is all FCC data that Adam had mentioned in the previous slides. So this is the data that you'll create challenges based on, right? So we've taken this and we've processed it. We've added some cool little features like views that'll open up your Bing Street side. We'll show you that later. And we also have the secondary addresses also provided by FCC attached to these BSLs. So if there's a secondary address, if you look at a location and the address doesn't look right, you can actually check to see if there's a secondary address for that. And in most cases there is, but if not, that is a challenge. So we'll show you that. What else? So let's go back over here. We have a little filter over here on the sidebar as well that shows different unit counts. You can turn that on and expand it, and you could filter your map view by unit count if you wanted to. And we also have a choice of base maps. So if you wanted to see a different base map, you can just click on these and see it. Some might be different, reveal different things that you might want to see, and you can just go through. We have a choice of a few different kinds here. The default one is the regular imagery. All right, what else on this page? We have some other links here to the other pages, but we'll show you those later when it's a little bit more applicable. The create location challenge submittal. I'm also going to come back to this. This is a button which will lead to another page that it's very similar to this, but it is the page that helps you even further prepare you for that BDC table submittal. So let's go back out to the menu. I'm a little anxious to get to that part, but let's go back out to the menu and kind of give you an idea of what these other pages looks like, and then we'll go and take that deep dive in the location challenge. So if I wanted to make a fixed availability challenge and look at an area for fixed availability, I would click this, and it's very similar than the previous page we saw for location, except for a little different color scheme and stuff like that. But it's very similar, and obviously the data is different because it's the availability. So when we zoom in, either zoom into a county or just zoom in with your cursor, you're going to see these hex bins reveal themselves, and they provide the data that help you make a challenge. I will, and also there's other data in these map layers too that you can reveal. If I didn't say earlier, this is all customizable in a way you can turn stuff on and off with the little check buttons inside of the layers. Similar user guide documentation, but this is more applicable for availability. Tips, technology codes, there's your regular user guide, and some FCC reference documents shortcut. But besides that, everything's the same. And I'll take a little deeper dive into the hex bin data and availability data later on. So let's jump back to that menu again and show you quickly the mobile broadband availability page. Similar interface here than the others, just a little different color scheme. But on this page, you're not actually going to create any challenges because FCC doesn't handle mobility availability challenges via submittal from a table. It actually uses an app, and we do have a link to this app here. I'll show you that later, but really this page is just to kind of zoom into that, maybe your same area that you're researching, and view some of the mobility coverage data by technology that we have here and speed data. But I'll go into that a little deeper later as well. Let's go back to that menu button, and I'm going to show you this last menu option, which is called data discovery. So this page is really built for kind of like a sandbox of research. It contains a bunch of data that isn't immediately applicable to creating a location challenge, a fixed broadband challenge, or mobility challenge via the app. It's more finding gap, looking at coverage, and has all these important links to where the data. So it's basically where the source of everything comes from. And as well, mentioned in that question earlier, those state programs. So a few of those state programs are right here. So if I click on this links button that comes up, this is this is the state that built the dashboard in the same platform as our application is in, and it's a great little dashboard, but it's part of the state program, and we have a quick link to it right here. Another one is I think the surveys, which was also mentioned by Adam in his presentation about submitting surveys. So this is a quick link right to the NCDIT survey. Let's see, the CAB planning tool. This is also a cool dashboard built on the same platform by the state. I think this is NC1MAP that did this. I'm not positive, or NCDIT. And this is cool. We actually have this data inside the app as well. So, because it was accessible, most of this data, I wanted to have the data in the app as well as the way the state is using it if people were curious. So that's why they're in these links. And so all the data inside of the app is not a lot of sources. It's FCC, obviously, or FCC CostQuest, and then NC1MAP and NCDIT really provide all the other data that you see in these maps. And one of the places where that data is available is this NC1MAP page. So you can see it's a great, easy to use page where you can download all that data by county. And there's the grant page. I also have this data in the app as well, but you can get to it here. It's really a nice little one-stop shop for everything you need to do to accomplish stuff. And like I said, bunch of different data that is in those links are also available in this page to do your own type of analysis in a PTRC county, including the CAB eligible, underserved. We did a little data aggregation there. Then we also have some others. I know I'm taking a little deeper dive into this than I thought I was going to at this point, but I thought it'd be kind of a cool, because we did mention it in a question. Somebody did bring it up. Survey points is in here. A lot of those stuff that's in the link. So it's a good thing that the state provides. We have environmental justice data here. The state provides nice little apps as well as accessible the data to build your own apps, as we just did for our PTRC application. So I can show you more of this later, but let's go back to the menu, and there's a little button down here which will jump you back to the main page. So now I want to take a deep dive into the location challenge and create some challenges and show you exactly how this is done, and kind of show you all the tools and how everything works. It's not too involved. It's pretty easy. And that's coming from a person who definitely is never sure if things are easy in the apps. So I try to make it as intuitive. We've been really working on that and talking back and forth to make this nice and person friendly. So let's start by just putting in a regular address. So if you wanted to research an address and see if you could possibly challenge something there, to begin, a bulk challenge, that is, you can just simply put an address in, or you can have a saved address, but you can actually just put in one address and it'll find every, like, Claiborne, Terrace. It's got, let's see if I put in Claiborne. Yeah, It can narrow it down, but it's a pretty good search tool. So it'll zoom to an extent in the area. This sample location I chose because it's a new neighborhood that has a lot of address points, as you can see, but not a lot of green dots, which is actually the BSL fabric. So this could be an area where you could do a big bulk challenge if you knew all these address points did have for instance they did have fiber connected to a lot of these locations, but they're not revealing themselves in the fabric, so as active coverage BSL. So this is a good example area. I can drop in some location challenges. So let me again just show you the pop-ups. If address point, if you just select it on the map with your cursor, it highlights in yellow. And also in the address points, we have the Bing street side, Bing bird's eye. Unlike Google, Bing allows us to no license issues to embed their cool little Microsoft Bing street side into our apps, and you could open this up. I'm going to come back to this later too, because this helps when compiling evidence documents. If you need those for your BDC submittal, you can open up your location and say, "Is this building that we need access to?" and take a little screenshot. And but that's right there in address points and also in BDSL. The BSL point, I'll dock it here. So from the fabric, so what I did, I just select this existing one. You can see some existing location challenges that we've been submitting and testing. We've been submitting these for a while too. I also have Adam might bring it up later, but a successful one. So we started submitting, a while ago, and we have our own locations that were like this that became green dots with the last release of the FCC's submittal. So there were successful challenges on our part. So I think I have one example where I can go to and show you that. But we can select the existing challenges as well. So this is one that one of our technicians submitted a while ago. You can see the name and all the historic stuff that you put in there. So let me show you how that actually works. So let's go to our tool here, which would be create location challenge. And that will change this interface. And then this is pretty simple and straightforward. You just select the location challenge and then click on the map to add a point. So say I wanted to add a location challenge at 835 Claiborne Terrace here. All you have to do is just drop it within the parcel footprint here, anywhere in there. And then you're going to see this form appear. So this is a form that is built exactly the way it needs to be for this record to be added to the table that is formatted for that BDC submittal. So it's one of the big things that this app is doing for you is making this easy for you, where you just have to add points and add some of the data and follow some of the rules. Okay, so some of those rules that I'm referring to, what are they? Adam might have hit on them earlier, but we have a quick way of getting to them here by just clicking the user guide documentation. And you can do this right while you're editing. And it opens up a couple different links here. So challenge category code overview, location challenge data dictionary. Those sound like two good ones that I would need to know to code these things correctly. So let's open one of these. This opens up a it opens immediately to a browser. And this is, so this comes from, this is one of the things we did in the app is we took a lot of these BDC specifications that were deeply hidden in documents in the FCC documents, and we took them and made them into these PDFs that you can download and quickly access so that you can follow along and put this information correctly in. So you're going to see this looks very similar to the form, right? Contact name, contact email, category code. So one of the things that you'll need is category code and a couple of, to know exactly what you're challenging. You need to know what number it represents, and constraints. So value must be null if category code is 1 through 8, stuff like that. However, we did make this easy in some instances in the form where you don't have to even know the constraints. It'll know the constraint once you put in the category code. Let me show you how that works. So let's go back to the guide or to the editor that shows the form. All I have to do is just click that again. It comes back. And let me just walk you through these. So contact name, you saw that came up automatically. That is going to access whoever when you log into this application via PTRC's platform, you'll have an account name and it'll recognize what account you're logged in as, and it'll automatically put that in contact name. Contact email will not come in automatically. So I do have some saved here I can drop in. This is the same stuff we use. This is the same stuff FCC uses for their samples. And you just put those in. Then you can choose your category code. So we have a drop down here. And again, this matches this. Let's go back here. So let's do we'll do category 1, missing broadband service location, because this is what we're doing here on this new development. We're gonna add some that we know that are connected, but they don't show a location in the fabric. So that would be category 1. And when I did that, you'll see address primary populated, so did city and state and zip code. And so you don't have to go back and do that. That it's going to populate based on where you are, and it is following the constraint of address primary values required for category code 7 or categories 1 or 2 BLS. So it knows that, and it puts in, since we put in number 1, it put in the address primary right there. A couple of these will have a star on them, and that's required for this as well, but they don't come in automatically because, well, a unit count could be different. The person with the knowledge that's adding this location might know that if that was a challenge that was required, like if it's a unit count challenge, which would be, I think, 3. So we wouldn't want that to come in automatically if that was different. But it is required for the submittal on a category code 1. So you just have to put 1 in there, and you can use these little arrows to do that. The location ID isn't required here because it's not a challenge of an existing BSL. But if it was, you could simply select that BSL and copy it in there like this. Oh, I lost the BSL, or I lost the location challenge. But you can just copy it in like this. That would be a location challenge. That would be like one of these: incorrect primary address 1, 2, 3. Well, it would be it would be anything except for 1 or 8, And that's what we did, 1 or 8. So that's that constraint right there. Okay, so let's go back. Let's do this again. We want to, let's do a whole bunch, actually. But I'm gonna do, put these in here real quick again. So we'll do a little bulk. If you forget to put something in there, you're gonna get that please enter a value. It won't let you create it without doing that. So we go 1, so count 1, and that is pretty much all we have to do. Building type code, you know this is residential, that's required because it has that star, and BSL flag will default to 0, and of course the latitude longitude will come in as well. And that is all that's required for this, and you can create it, and then it'll actually take the cursor and set you up for creating the nest point immediately. So you can go on creating your bulk challenge by creating more challenge points. So let me do a whole bunch here real quickly. So it looks a little bulky. Of course, I guess we could do a 2. Oh, well, no, it wouldn't be a 2 there. I guess it'll only be 1s here because this is no BSL in this new development. Let's just create a few more. So it looks like we've trying to address this empty subdivision. Code 1. Make it 2 unit. If you're wondering what these codes represent, that is right here in this guide as well. And would be in the other link too. It reminds me, I'm going to show you that other link right now. So X is one, it's not sure what that is. It's business and residential. But I'm going to show you, create this one, and I'm going to show you this link right here. Challenge category code overview, because this is good. And this is something that FCC put out in one of their documents where it kind of walks you through a new BSL. So we're doing number 1, so this is good. Add a BSL to the fabric that seems to be missing from the fabric. Take these steps. If you know the address location you're looking at, enter 0. So we had that coming up 0 on default. And then nice helpful notes and pointers for each challenge location. So very helpful document. All right, let's actually do one more right here. Change that interface. And that's all we have to do. So we've created 4 challenge locations. And so now that, okay, so say that's it. That's your bulk challenge that you've created 4 and you want to submit these 4. Well, that's what this button is for. Create location challenge submittal. So you're done, you're ready to go. Go ahead and click this and it'll open a new page, which is essentially the same thing, except you have the table view now previewing the table of that you're going to build your BDC CSV submittal from. But the map, the layers, these buttons are pretty much the same, but I have a couple more little buttons up there to show you. Well, the first thing you can do, so really what this page is, let me back up. Really what this page is to review, the map page is to review what you've done. So say you did all those location challenges 1 week or a day, and you're going to submit them later on. And you want to review what you did or review what the person did. And so that's what the map is for, to also build your evidence documents. So you can go back in and see what you did, and everything is editable here. Everything works the exact same way. So let me show you that. First, let's find our points that we made. Since we're showing a whole bunch of historic locations here, we can narrow it down really quickly by going to the right here in the table, upper right table. We see a bunch of tools. This first one is actions, and all I have to do is select the select filter button, and let's add a little clause here. Again, this is all in the user guide and instructions on how to do this, but it's pretty easy. So we do contact name, and we can look for, well, it would be HDR creator. We could do contact email as well. Look for those Jane Broadbands. But that would just get us the person, right? So let's do creation date, which would be today. So these are the only ones we did today. That opens a little calendar view. Just put it in there. And that looks good. We're good to go. So if you click this little toggle button, it'll filter and show the 4 locations I just made. So now we have a preview of our table. And okay, I'm not sure of this location. I want to recheck it. We can just select one of the locations and go back to this actions button. You can turn off your filter, and you can go to zoom to, and it'll zoom right to it in the map. So you can review this data and check it. You can select it with the regular pop-up, or you can go into your edit if you want to update this and select it with this. This is the edit selector now. It's a little different than the pop-up. And this is what you would use to, well, click on, you just follow the directions there, click on the map to select the feature. So, and then that allows you to update it. So if there's something you wanted to change, we'll change the unit count and update that. Okay, done. Other things you can do here, you can select, you want to review or gather some evidence. You can go into the Bing and select that. These are in the BSLs as well, if there were a BSL here. And a key button here that we added was a little print utility. So this allows you to print a map for your evidence. So you can do Bing Street Side screenshot. You can print a map of the area with this little utility. You can customize it, scale, include attributes. You can do a lot. You can really make your own little map, and you can see how fast it did. It just made a little print of this area, and you can select it, and it opens in your Adobe PDF, just the free version. And then you can download this or take a screenshot of it and include it with your evidence documents. Really, you could just say, look, this whole subdivision, look at all these points. Be good evidence example. And what else is here? Same stuff, not much, just base map gallery. So if you wanted to change this for your evidence and show a different base map, you can do that. The user guide area, pretty much similar, except a few more. And we're going to come back to this later on. But the BDC filer user guide is here, which will be a nice handy resource for what Adam's going to show you at the very end. So what this gets you is that table export. And well, let's just show it to you real quickly here. So for instance, say you have all your, everything looks good. You made an edit. That's all you needed to do. Your table looks good. This is going to show you the table exactly the way it needs to be in CSV. So what you need to do is go to the actions and go down to export and export to CSV. There are a couple other options there, but you really don't need those for your BDC submittal. You just need export to CSV. And you click on that, and what it will do is ask for a place to save it on your desktop hard drive. So, and it'll put some default name. You can really name it. This might be requirement on BDC side. So this is Adam's area. I forget if the naming is required to be different, but you would follow whatever directions BDC wants you to do. And you know, there's one little step. Well, there's two little steps after you get in the CSV, and we'll talk about that after I come back to this. But it's just two little steps that you have to make the CSV right. That doesn't exactly get right from the app export, but maybe someday we'll get an update that clears those two steps, but they're pretty easy. All right, so now that is it in terms of location. It's pretty straightforward. If you wanted to hop back to that previous page, you can return to the home page and jump back into the location challenge and go back to work in here. But let's show you how to let's just take a little deeper dive into fixed availability. And one way of getting there, shortcut, is up here with these buttons that I showed earlier. Or I actually might not have showed these earlier. But I have little shortcut buttons for mobile availability and fixed availability. So you just click on that, and that goes to fixed availability. And I just want to take a little bit deeper of a dive here than I did last time when I just previewed it. And let's actually go to we can go to that exact page. Ooh, I do have an example of, let's do this. I have an example of a secondary address because I didn't really show you that earlier. But if I go to this location, so I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with the way FCC does their secondary addresses, but so in this case where you have a, you've got 4 different units here on these townhouses and only one BSL. So at first looking at this would be kind of weird, kind of confusing. But when you do open it up, like you would actually just say, well, where are the other fabric points for those other locations? Well, they're actually in here as secondary addresses. Just to see that, you just need to scroll to the bottom, and then you can see that even though the BSL is showing 6201, also has 6203, 6205, 6207, these other units that are there. And to look at the fabric data there, all you have to do is click this little arrow and it expands. And you can see they do, in their data, they mark it primary, secondary. It's a secondary, and they have their own location IDs and their own FCC REL number. So that's how to get to those. Okay, but now we're here, I want to show you what else. So we're in the fixed. So I'm going to zoom out to a extent of these hex bins, which are these hexagonal, I guess it's a hexagonal layer of the fabric. This is how FCC does them. This is data is directly from that data. And when I click on that for the pop-up, it will highlight it and immediately show you the providers and the technology at that location. Now, if I click actually at BSL and within that hex bin, I actually can get to that hex bin from the BSL by going up here. You can actually see it says 1 through 8. So it's going to have that hex bin underneath it. And if I click that, it gives you a nice little view of, well, this is the active coverage I clicked on, and here are all the providers that are at that location. And then I can further dig down by selecting one of those providers and see what kind of data it has in. So for instance, here, if I wanted to see, well, this is giving me statistical data, serve locations have been, but I want to see the speed of that fixed broadband for that AT&T's copper. I would go to map layers and turn on the FCC aggregated HEP bins here and see what that has. Now, when I click that, it's going to show even more data here. Oh, more statistical data, percent of file reported, cable reported. This is all FCC data, so we haven't done anything with this. It's just to provide you information to make your fixed broadband challenge if required. So again, no speed. I'm just getting more statistics here. Go back to the map layers and scroll down, and there is reported service availability layer, and just click that. These are, this is also FCC. They do this by block. I'm not positive. I think it's block. But if I select that area, so let's actually select a BSL. You can see this increase to 1 to 13. Now we have the speed there. So if you wanted to challenge the speed, a reported service speed at a BSL, you could go in here and see what they advertise. So that's what you would be challenging your advertise. So what am I talking about challenging advertise? So let's do it. I'm not going to actually make some challenges the way I did with location, but I'm going to show you how you would do it. Same way, go up to the create availability challenge button, looks the same, but this is a broadband challenge. You just drop it in the map. This is a little different form because it's a little different requirements. It doesn't have any automated location based on your code because it's just a different way of doing it. It doesn't have constraints essentially. So you have to put in all the information that you would required to need from your BSL. So you do category code, location ID, you'd copy it in here like this. So what are the category codes for fixed broadband? Well, just go to the user guide. It's got its own data dictionary, a couple more tips, technology codes, all good resources. This will open up a very similar document you saw for the location, but you can see there's not really any constraints in here. There's really, the value just must be one of these codes. So say if you were challenging the copper, AT&T's copper speed, this is the way you do it. You would choose, well, whatever you're challenging would be number 10. So you put it in 10, and this is the max advertised download speed and latency and business residential category, pretty much similar. But again, go back to the map, you would be getting that information, group 10, you'd be getting that information from your layers here. So that's where you would put your speed in if that's what you're challenging. So it doesn't, there's no like, you do that, I think, in the evidence description, like I'm challenging the speed. Again, this is a little bit more of the BDC requirements, but everything you need here to do this, that's where it would be 10 in that challenge code. See, I still need this. Yeah. Brand name, you would put AT&T, provider ID. It's all in here. Provider ID would be there's a provider ID. You'd all just basically very easily just copy and paste it into your brand name. I guess would be charter. This is all in the user guide. I need my user guide from my own stuff. Data vintage will be default based on the data. That's good to know. That goes back to that little timeline slide that you saw previously by Adam, where stuff was submitted. So that you know what data that you're looking at in the app, this will be showing it. However, something that we found when we were testing this is actually some of the submittal requirements aren't actually equal to the data. So this data is the latest data released in the end of December 2023. But when we put that in data vintage, it kicked it back. So it's like they don't have the acceptance of the new data in this particular date field yet, which was weird. But that's what it needs to be so it doesn't error out. So that's what we put in there, 630, although the data is much more updated than that. Just thought I'd mention that. But that's how you create a availability challenge. Everything else is the same way, once you create them. Say I didn't want to create that. Let's see, let me go back. I'll discard that. But if you do a bunch of bulk fixed broadband, just go to the submittal page, and this brings up its own version of that same page that we just looked at, or it gives you the table ready to go. You can edit in the map, zoom in. Now you definitely might need some evidence documents to accompany this. So you can use the tools or the evidence print to help you out with that. Everything else is the same. You export it out as CSV, set your filters. You do, I didn't go over some of the other stuff here, well, the zoom, but there's some more statistical button on your data. You can also show and hide columns. This is defaulted for the export CSV, but if you wanted to do some other type of analysis in a table view, you could hide some columns here. So that is fixed broadband, pretty straightforward. Let's go back and go back to the menu page and look at the other modules. So those are the two modules for creating challenges, BDC challenges, location and fixed broadband that require a table CSV submittal. Mobile broadband availability that I talked about a little bit earlier does not require a submittal via any document, but it does require you to, if you wanted to test the speed. So how would that work? Well, I guess you zoom in. If you zoom in now, the data layers reveal themselves pretty much the same. I can even try to use the same colors as the FCC page use. I think they use purple for their mobile fabric, and it's pretty much the same thing. Here's your BSL coverage. I just wanted to be consistent with all that. But what you do get on this, if you wanted to review what you wanted to test inside of the app, you could do this by going to that area and turning on that coverage layers. So when I do that, some of that uses hex bins too, these hexagonals. You can just select an area, and through the same way, you can go see what is at that point. It selects. It even gets the address point nearby. But you can see the mobile coverage and you can see what's there. This mobile coverage doesn't have actually mobile data. Again, this is all FCC downloaded stuff. But here's, how about this, the 5G. So you can see at that fabric point, you have minimum down, minimum up, 35.3. That's the data that's in that coverage data. And we also have the 4G, 3G. I also put in the Ookla speed tests if you're curious to see what they got when they do speed testing compared to what you're going to do in your app. So if you were to see what Ookla got for their speed tests, and you can compare this from what you get when you do it on your app. So this app here, when I click on this, it just goes to the FCC page, and you can it has directions for downloading for Android and iOS, and a little video, which is nice, and you can choose your speed test. And I guess the way this works is, it sends, you submit it via the app, and it sends that speed test data right to FCC. Adam can correct me if I'm wrong about that. And
that's correct.
Okay, and you can compare your speeds at an area. So that's what this page does. It just kind of helps you out in the same kind of interface as a location challenge or availability challenge would do, but there's really nothing that you submit from this page, but it's just a nice handy guide. All right, and let's go back to the last module. Jump back to the home page, data discovery, and look at some of that data. I did a little deeper dive than I thought I was going to last time. I got so excited about it, but already kind of went over these links here, and that they bring up a lot of the state built stuff for you to look at, but also in our layers, there's great stuff here. So internet connectivity by county, you can select this and you can dock up the pop-up, and you can see a nice little pie chart of internet connectivity access by household. So again, this page is for viewing different types of data that aren't necessarily applicable to creating challenges, but might be helpful for taking a county look, doing some data analysis, finding some gaps in coverage, looking at environmental justice data. That is all hosted out by your NCDIT or NC1 map. I'm just taking this data and putting it into the app and making it easily accessible for you to do analysis or work with. Definitely some good stuff in here. FCC Broadband data collection from June, and you can see all their stats.
Mm-hmm.
By county. I think this is tracks within the county. Yep. But this is what this page does. You have your filters, base maps. Just does a capture of a bunch of data you might be interested in. and we can add to it as well if PTRC is interested in adding to it. Okay, so I think I've dived deep into the 4 modules.
Mhm.
And I want to now go back to where we were in the location
Brian?
challenge. Yes.
Hey, before there's a question in the chat. What exactly do we need to edit and or look for? A lot of this stuff is really good material that we have put into one place. It's like, you know, a big toolbox full of tools from NC1 Map, from CostQuest, from NCDIT, you know, a bunch of resources. And by using the tool, it's really what you're looking for I'd say from the 2 different types of challenges, there's 2 different things really to look for. From a location challenge, it's more of, is there a point? Is there a on the parcel or on the address? What is the information within the point? Can you click on one of the points for me, please? Just zoom into one of the attribute tables.
Yeah, let me actually do it from this page. Let me just show you the search.
Yeah, one of the green ones.
One of the existing BSLs. Okay.
Yes, please. So like this BSL here has the address. It has a location ID, which is the FCC unique identifier, the primary address, the city, state, zip, right? The unit count, it's a 1 single family. That's what the unit count means. The BSL flag is it a broadband service location? True. The building type is a B. You can always look back at the data tape dictionary to see what your building type codes are, or so on and so forth. There's no secondary address connected to that because it's a single family on 1 parcel. These are the kind of the things from a location standpoint. Thank you, business. But this is the kind of things from a location standpoint. And in our chat too, Aaron has alluded to that this is a building type code B, which is business, and that is true. It is a residential, so that would also be a challenge.
Yeah,
great catch.
That's a good one. Yeah.
But as you can see, the data is brought in. A lot of it's brought in very quickly from ISPs and the FCC. So there are a lot of things to look for and to challenge. So it's a great example. Thank you, Aaron, for this location as well. But that's from a location standpoint. From an availability standpoint, it's more about speed. It's more about availability of the of broadband in your area.
Yeah. So you're challenging if there's fiber.
Correct. You're challenging if there's fiber in your area. There's a lot of funding right now going to efforts to get fiber into disadvantaged communities or just across the county to get everybody up to speed. Again, e-learning, all kinds of things are going on, and you don't really want your neighbors to go, get behind because everybody's going at a higher, fast pace with their broadband internet. So by making sure this map is accurate or talking with your neighbors on an availability standpoint is very beneficial to keeping this broadband map and keeping the FCC aware of everything that's going on. It's a great question.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. And with that too, I know we're got about 20 minutes left in the webinar, and I'm going to go ahead, Brian, and steal screen if you don't mind.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to segue to you is right here, the user guide documentation, the BDC filer user guide, and that's where we're going. So this is right here in the location that you need it to be. It's one of those that bring up their whole guide, but yeah, this will guide you through what Adam's about to show you. All right.
Yep, exactly. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm gonna share my screen now for the BDC portion. As that was a lot of great content about the web app, of all the things that you can do within it. The toolbox is basically like there's many, many different websites and things to go to, different resources, and a lot of it's compiled in one place. Being able to create challenges and be able to export them as a table is also very, very advantageous, because to do a bulk challenge, you have to use the FCC Broadband Data Collection System, or the BDS. If everybody can see my screen okay, I'm going to show you the website. It's bdc.fcc.gov. I'm going to click on sign in, and it's just your username and password. Yeah, you can do that. You can sign in if you need help signing in. Of course, there's the link as always. Once you're signed in, you can see I got the RFN number, the Regional Triad Regional Council, or Piedmont Triad Regional Council, government resource. If you're a service provider, it will say provider. It will have different types of your whatever your the type of your organization is. So here you can see this window, data as of date, December 31st, 2023. The window is open January 2nd. Window closes March 1st. So there is just a window for bulk challenges in there for the biannual, but there will be another one coming up shortly. So in order to create submissions, there's different types of challenges, as we've been saying. Location challenges, otherwise, and this is bulk fabric challenge. Then there's fixed challenges, which would be the availability, and crowdsourced. And then mobile challenges, this is kind of a little more archaic. I'm a little surprised they still have it on the site. A lot of time they have an app now. The FCC has developed an app, and if you use the application, you can drive around or walk around your neighborhood and test your speeds using the app. And you can file challenges through the app for your mobile broadband speeds. So I'm going to create a submission for this for bulk challenges. My submission type is, do I want to do a biannual, which would be the bulk fabric, or a crowdsourced, which is crowdsourced. You can make a challenge other than biannually. And that will just be a lot more, if you have a neighborhood or whatnot, you can use that to challenge. I want to challenge the most recent date. I'm going to create my submission. And it looks like I have one in progress. And I have an action required, so I'll have to look at that. Okay, so this site, so it's submissions. We filed 2, but currently we've had 4 accepted and 6 rejected. But the 4 accepted, I like to talk about a success story a little bit on this one as well. There is a site in Gibsonville, North Carolina, that the parcel or the house itself has been, the footprint is moved, and the point was on the wrong property, and so on and so forth. And by doing the challenge, we were able to update the map, and it currently shows as on the map as being accepted, and it has moved. So, and another one was a unit count. It's a single family residence that was marked as a quadplex. So certain things like that. It's always good to have a very accurate map. So those are good. We have 41 pending, so they're still focused on that. This was done in the biannual cycle right before the deadline. So currently we're just going through that, and the FCC is looking at those from a bulk challenge standpoint. And review submission. One thing I want to show is when you file if you put in a CSV and you import it, sometimes you'll get this invalid data. The goal of the application, the web application, is that when you export the data, that it comes out exactly the way you need it. So if I click on view details here, you'll see there's a different errors. Now, the good news is the FCC does help out and tell you which row of your CSV or your Excel table, or however you use CSVs, or create CSVs, shows you what row has an issue. If, for example, I'm trying to submit a duplicate record that I've already submitted, the lat longs are not within a certain distance. So this is one that where, for example, we're asking a footprint has been moved or a point is not in the right area. So it needs to be greater than 0 meters and 5,000 meters. So it just has to move somewhere. So the lat long we provide for where it's supposed to be needs to not be exactly where it's at. And I think that's what that is. The address ID. So secondary addresses have unique identifiers as well. These addresses are, for example, if you have one parcel and you have a duplex, for example, and it's 130, let's say it's 131 Oak Street and 133 Oak Street. 131 may be your primary address and 133 would be your secondary address. That would be a different unique identifier in a different column altogether. So to show the table as well. So when it comes out of the application, you'll notice the table looks like this. There's a category code. So when you input your contact name, email, phone,
Adam,
type
we can't.
Yes.
We can't see what you're sharing.
Could you see it before?
I can see your Fabric Challenge
Okay.
FCC page.
All right. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. Just the Excel is not showing.
Yeah, I moved it from screen to screen, but it doesn't seem to. Can you see it now or no?
No.
All right, I'm gonna share again. Aha, there it goes. Okay.
Yeah.
So object ID, address, existing BSL, these are highlighted because these will need to be deleted out of the export of the map application. Once that's done, you'll have a clean set. It'll look like this.
Those are one of those steps that I was talking about. Yep.
Yeah, one of the 2 steps that needs to be done post-processing. But you can see category code here. There's a category codes 1, meaning new BSL, 5, which is a footprint location. As you notice, these are the only ones with location IDs because they currently exist in the FCC database. The FCC basically likes it as you just tell them where the new lat longs are, where it's supposed to be going to, and the unique identifier, and the rest of the information will just come back as errors. So it's very important to make sure that you keep an eye out on that document too, the data dictionary that Brian was referring to, that has the certain fields that are null or not. It's very beneficial. And this is a good example here of each category code and the different type of format each one is. So like even if you do not use the web application and you are creating bulk challenges, you still have to make sure all this is in the correct fields, the correct records, so on and so forth. We're going to go back to the app. So I'm going to submit a bulk challenge. I'm going to submit this one here. So it says it's a valid file, and then I'm going to upload.
We're still seeing the CSV.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
Okay.
in Zoom, if you move your screen, it doesn't work. You have to like reshare your screen. Yeah, there you go.
So I'm going to upload the challenge. a CSV. It's going to process. And then the next step after that will be to submit evidence. After you submit evidence, you can use the Bing Street Views that are in the web application, or you can take addresses and go to Google Earth or Street Maps or however also and walk through the neighborhood if you like, take pictures, any kind of email correspondence, text messages, whatever you have that you need to use the challenge. You can upload them using the upload evidence function.
And there is a document. There is a document that it's called "How to Submit Successful Evidence" or something to that effect, that goes into each challenge and what is the best information to include for those. So, and that's in the app.
Yep.
So,
and then once you submit the, yep.
Mhm.
And a good evidence, just an example of an evidence that we used to have those 4 successful challenges. So you can see here, it was just a street view and a screenshot of the street view and a screenshot of the house and the unit count and so on and so forth from the app. But again, when it comes to availability challenges, a lot of things, there's a lot of changes. I just lost screen.
That's okay. We only have 9 minutes left, so I feel like we can just go ahead and wrap up the kind of recap and ask for any questions from the audience.
I just wanted to steal the screen there too and show that reference document that you were referring to. What to expect after filing a challenge. That's one of them. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, there's one for evidence too, specifically, but that's okay. They're all in there. There's lots of documentation.
Yeah, that's in the fixed one, I think, right here. So if you go to user guides, how to submit a fixed. Yeah, that's a good one. I also want to point out the user guide is that I referred to, app workflow user guide is right here too, and that brings up a PDF, so you can jump right to creating a challenge point, and it'll walk through you the steps kind of similar to what I showed, like that. So everything step by step is in here at your disposal as well. This was that successful one that we had. You were talking about 311 Oakhurst.
311 Oakhurst, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's our green point that we got.
So with that, let's hand it back over to Garrett and lead any Q&A that we have.
Yes, thank you. So again, thank you, Brian and Adam, for going through all of that fun stuff with the application and everything, showing those features. It's a good thing my camera was off because my jaw did drop a couple times at all of the data and all of the abilities that this web application has. So thank you for walking us through that. And again, there's just so much to show. It's hard to cram it in, the time allocated for this webinar. So we're eager to gather feedback and continue to get any questions, so we can kind of move into, again, that Q&A as we've kind of walked through a lot of the features and everything there that's been built out. We'll be happy to kind of troubleshoot and go through any of those questions at this time. Feel free to unmute and throw it out there, or again, use the chat feature, and we will help you the best we can. Okay. not everybody at once here. So I think to kind of, as part of that wrapping up, Adam, or yeah, I guess Adam, if you want to quickly kind of just re-go over kind of that licensing component and just,
Yeah.
kind of getting access to it, because that'll be part of the next steps is getting folks within our footprint, access to this application so they can really get in there and start messing with it, playing with it. And then I'm sure many questions
Yeah.
and things will be filtered our way from that.
Yeah, definitely. So the web application is built within an ESRI or Esri ArcGIS online organizational PDS or product delivery service. So a lot of time you need to have, or if you have organizational ID through HUL currently, you can go through that with PTRC and kind of be able to share groups and be able to use the web application that way if you're an affiliate or affiliated with PTRC. In terms of FRN numbers and things for bulk challenges, it's the same thing. Make sure you work with PTRC and get authorizations that your CORS profile is linked to the RFN account.
Okay, yes, thank you for that clarification again. And we will, I'll move it into kind of next steps. So again, we urge everyone to take advantage of these tools and simply, keep internet service providers, keep them honest. Let's look at speeds, let's look at these locations. And again, I know close to the office here, there's lots of new neighborhoods, there's lots of development, especially within our region. So, there's a lot of areas we might want to double check, or communities that's maybe historically not has been underserved, maybe kind of relook at those and see what those numbers look like and see kind of those maps in that way. So again, if you haven't already created an account for the broadband data collection system, Adam kind of showed you, it's really easy just to grab that account with FCC and start researching, addresses and making sure everything is up to par. This is another reminder that this is being recorded. So this webinar will be available on PTRC's website. So the QR code there, if you want to scan that at this time, that will take you to the placeholder on our website that shows you the recording of last week. And then of course, this week's or today's rather, whenever this one is ready on that website. And again, it does have that resource page that I think Chris put in the chat earlier at the beginning. So that is also found on our website. So we do want to be, transparent and give you all of the resources, everything that was referenced today during the webinar. It's definitely there. Next steps for us as PTRC is we kind of start to wrap up this project with this awesome, web application that we was walked through today. We're going to continue advancing broadband and digital equity within the Piedmont Triad region because it's become a major focus here at PTRC, and the development of this application and the hard work, that Aaron, Adam, and Brian and all the HDR's team has done has really, acted as a primer. And it's geared up a lot of the work that we're going to be looking at and focusing in the future. One of those is we are starting the development of the regional digital inclusion plan. So that is going to be a project that's about to kick off and begin within the next month or two. And we're eager to use this application and use all these great data resources that Brian definitely, built in that application. So we're going to start doing our research and digging into how the area looks and then developing out that plan. So I know in the chat we had some reference to digital navigators and educators and a lot of positions and funding that's been created around this kind of digital equity component. So we're going to, work on that plan and continue to drive, this core focus here at PTRC. And we want to stay connected with everyone here and everyone that's, in this line of work. So thank you again for, logging in and seeing what we had to offer today. And we, again, appreciate it. And yes, this will be recorded and on the website. So if there's nothing else to add here at the end, we can go ahead and log off and close out this webinar. Thank you again for attending, everyone.